So compositional semantics is the study of how meanings of small units combine to form the meaning of larger units. Okay, so how meanings of small units, an example of a small unit would be a word or even a phrase, combine to form the meaning of larger units. A larger unit would be, an example would be a sentence. Okay, even how meanings of small units, like a sentence sometimes can also be regarded as a small unit, would combine to form the meaning of larger units, like paragraphs. Okay, the whole does not equal the sum of the parts as illustrated in the example 8 below. The police officer caught the robber does not imply that the robber caught the police officer. Can you see what is happening here? Okay, in the second part of the sentence, we have the very same words that have been used in the first part. But even though the second part is using the very same words, that does not mean what is implied here in the first part of the sentence also applies to the second part of the sentence. The meaning for the second part of the sentence is different. Syntactic organization matters when it comes to sentence meaning, as shown in the example 9 below. Okay, the police officer caught the robber gives us the same meaning of what is being portrayed in the second part of the sentence. The robber was caught by the police. So we are seeing here that something that is different from what we saw in 8. Okay, in 8, the first part of the sentence and the second part of the sentence using the very same words. Okay, but here the organization, the syntactic organization, the way the words have been ordered, even the way if you look at the structure of the sentence, this first sentence is different from the structure of the second one, but what we have in the end is that the meaning is the same. So what is implied in the first part of the sentence is also implied in the other part of the sentence. Okay, still on compositional semantics, the principle of compositionality thus states that the meaning of a sentence is determined by the meaning of its words in conjunction with the way they are syntactically organized. So for you to arrive at the meaning of the whole sentence, of course you may want to consider the meaning of the individual words in the sentence, but this has to be done in conjunction with the way the sentence itself is syntactically organized. Of course, there are some exceptions to this principle. Okay, these exceptions, come in because it is possible to have sentences that can be considered as anomalies, sentences that are metaphors, and also sentences that are idioms. Let's have a look at this in detail. We also covered anomalies in the first topic of this course, but just to remind ourselves, an anomaly or anomalies are phrases that are structurally, syntactically well organized, but they semantically make no sense. Let's have a look at some examples. Carl green ideas, sleep furiously, the bachelor is pregnant, his typewriter has bad intentions. Okay? These sentences are well formed, syntactically or even structurally, but they make no sense. There's no way you can have an idea that sleeps, and there's no way you can have a bachelor who falls pregnant. And also, there's no way you can have a typewriter that has some intentions, because a typewriter is a non-living entity. It is inanimate. Okay, and then now let's consider metaphors. A metaphor is the use of an expression to refer to something that it does not literally denote in order to suggest a similarity. Okay, there's some 3 examples here. The first one says, our president is a lion. She has a heart of gold. My mother was boiling mad. So the meanings of these words are not derived from the meanings of the words that are used, in the sentences. You don't use or you don't take into consideration the literal meanings of the words used. Because if you say our president is a lion, our president, the human being, cannot be a lion. So these are metaphors. So it means that the president is now being compared to a lion. Okay? So there's a kind of a comparison to suggest some similarities here. She has a heart of gold. No, gold. There's no way you can have a heart of gold. Okay? Because gold is something that cannot live in the cannot be deposited in somebody's heart. And also to have a mother who was boiling mad is also impossible, because we cannot get the meaning of the whole metaphors from the meanings of the individual words used in the metaphors themselves. Then we regard them as metaphors. Okay, let's try to compare a metaphor with a metonymy. Remember metonymy? Okay, remember we covered metonymy, the lexical relation known as metonymy, in the previous topic. Do you remember some examples that we used? Examples such as the top floor, or the uniform, or the suit. Okay, you know the top floor, like a phrase that represents manager, and the uniform, phrase that is representing, a police officer, and even the suits, maybe the working class, people who normally will put on a suit when they are going to work. Okay, so let's compare a metaphor with a metonymy. A metaphor shares actual characteristics with what it substitutes for. Metonymy substitutes certain words for others with which they share associations of meaning. So just like we saw in the example of a suit or uniform or top floor. So we refer to an entity or thing by naming something associated with it, which is also similar to what happens with metaphor. Okay, we still continue looking at the comparison between a metaphor and a metonymy. A metonymy, even though we're saying that a metaphor may be similar to a metonymy, but there are some differences. A metonymy differs from a metaphor in the following ways. A metaphor is an iconic sign. It shares the actual characteristics of what it replaces, while a metonymy is an indexical sign. It has a natural association with what it replaces. Now let's have a look at what idioms are all about. Idioms are phrases with fixed meanings, not composed of literal meanings of the words. Okay. The following are some examples of idioms. Add insult to injury, which means to worsen an unfavorable situation. And then feel a bit under the weather, which means feeling slightly ill. And hit the nail on the head. Do or say something exactly right. So what we have seen with metaphors, idioms, and also anomaly is that sometimes the meaning of a sentence is not determined by the literal meanings of the words. Okay. Sometimes the meaning of a sentence is not equal to the literal meanings of the words that we find in the sentences. This is where we get idioms, or this is where we get metaphors, as we saw, and also this is where we get anomalies. So these three examples, metaphor, anomaly, and idioms, okay, are just in contrary to what the principle of compositionality, talk about. That the meaning of a sentence may be determined by the meanings of the words, especially the literal meanings of the words in conjunction with the syntactic organization. It is possible to derive at the meaning of a sentence without necessarily taking into consideration the literal meanings of the words, as we see in idioms, in metaphors, and also anomalies. So, in conclusion, it has been seen in our discussion that the truth conditions for certain English sentences are systematically related to each other. Okay? Especially when we were looking at paraphrases. Okay, the truth condition implied in one sentence may also be the same truth condition implied in another, with paraphrases. In terms of their propositional logic, translations allows us to precisely characterize these truth conditional relationships and to clearly identify them. So, from the examples that we've discussed so far, okay, we've been able to see some truth conditional relationships, and we've also been able to identify them. Okay, but if you haven't been able, to identify them, in this case, I would just ask you to go back and go through the slides and see if you can come up with even your own examples, so that you see how the truth condition of one sentence, like with paraphrases, can also apply to the truth condition of another sentence. Okay, this marks the end of our lesson. As usual, there are some references, some books that you may want to consult in order to understand even better, to have a better understanding of this topic. Okay, I thank you very much.